Welcome. This presentation is messy, unpacking the problems of practice in library maker spaces. What we're going to share today is a little bit about the presenters. There are three of us. We're going to talk about the complex but rewarding work of running a library maker space or a maker program. We're going to talk about all the different shapes and sizes that maker spaces come in. We're going to define 6 of the common problems that staff and libraries have when setting up or creating a maker program. We're going to show you about how to develop practical approaches to addressing each problem. And then we're going to ask for you to share your creative solutions with us through an email. I am Cindy Place. I am the Library Makers Leadership Team Chair. Lisa Regala is the co-founder of Library Makers. And Natasha Payne Brunson is the Library Makers Leadership Team Vice Chair. And we're all happy to be with you. Library Makers, it's a free online community. We are funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Sciences currently. We have several goals. One is to connect and support library staff at all levels of experience. We recognize that we have beginners that are in a part of our organization. We have people that have been doing it for years. That's part of the beauty of Library Makers because the experienced members can share with the inexperienced members and vice versa, and it makes us a very collaborative organization. We create a space, we hope, that's safe and people feel free to share their ideas and there are no silly questions. And it's also a great place to get information. You want to do a program for teens, what ideas people have. It's a very, very friendly and cooperative space. And so members are very happy to share their ideas. And then our goal is basically to equip and advance the libraries to be innovative thinkers for maker spaces and programs. We focus on building community. That's our main focus. We want to serve library makers, library programs, library staff. We want to help you grow and develop confidence in your skills so that we can improve our library maker spaces.
So the complex but rewarding work of running libraries maker programs in a small library. Do you have the space? Do you have the staffing? Do you have the budget? I don't have the right skills. Sounds familiar? And these are all the questions we would like to address. Next.
So, what do we mean by the term makerspace? When you hear that term, makerspace, your brain might immediately go to one of the types we have listed here, a dedicated space, right? Thinking about a room or an area in the library that's specifically designed or converted into a space for maker activities. But when we say makerspace, we know they come in all different shapes and sizes, and a dedicated space is just one type of makerspace. In libraries around the country, we see a lot of multi-use spaces. So that could be a room or area of the library that's quickly converted to serve as a temporary space for maker programming at a specific time. The tools and materials might be stored in closets or on mobile carts that come in and out of a room. So that's one type of space. We also see outreach and mobile units. So that's for programming that's offered outside the parameters of the library, bringing tools and materials to people in schools, nursing homes, after school clubs, etc. That could be through like a big fancy van. It could also be taking some bins and boxes in your own car, right? And driving out into a mobile program. A fourth type are at-home programs. So a lot of folks might do virtual programming. So that could be a type of programming where people are doing their making at home, or they might offer tools, materials, and instruction that can be checked out of the library and taken home as well for that programming to be done at home. And then the final type of makerspace we define is a community event. So these could be gatherings where local makers and creatives come and bring their projects to share and demonstrate or get inspiration from others. If you've ever heard of like fix-it clinics or repair fairs, right? That could be another type of community event that's still part of what we consider a makerspace. So even if you didn't think you had a makerspace before you came to this presentation, maybe think about how we define it in these different types, and there might be something there that meets you, fits you. So, no matter what type of makerspace you have or are dreaming to create, we've found through listening sessions and focus groups with various folks that work in library makerspaces across the country that there's a common set of challenges that everyone faces. So next, we're going to go through and take you through what we call the 6 problems of practice before we kind of start to address some strategies to address them. So the first one that's common is communicating the value and impact of library makerspaces. So making itself as a term is not super clearly defined. And even that term makerspace, right, I talked about is lots of people have different definitions of what that is. So it can be hard to convey what the role of a makerspace is in the library. And so it can also then be hard to talk about how the impact of that space has on your community. So when we think about communicating the value, we're thinking about, does your administration, board, funders, community, do they understand the impact, outcomes, purpose, and vision of your maker program?
The second problem that we have addressed, problem of practice, is that library makerspaces need strategies to engage all kinds of people, all diverse kinds of talents. Your demographics of your community may dictate some of the programs that you do. So you need to look at what needs you have, brainstorm about what kinds of maker programs would your community embrace or use or want. And then you have to look at how to get people involved in your maker programs. So you have to do some marketing strategies that target certain groups. For example, if you've got a senior group that wants to do cooking for one, then there's a program that you could develop that would be a program distinctly for that group of people. So it is very important that you engage with your audiences, that you know what it is that they want, and that you provide programs that they are interested in participating in.
And problem number 3, creating accessible and welcoming space. Makerspaces need to be more accessible and welcoming to the whole community, regardless of cultural and social economic development and physical barriers. So we do not need to tell everyone how diverse our audience are, but we also want to make sure our audience feel welcome. And that's where we come in and evaluate the space and to make sure it's accessible and inviting at the same time. We are creating the real diversity of talent and creativity, integrity of our community, and the program space and program delivery. So these are the questions that we need to address.
The fourth problem is about creating a culture of continuous learning and innovation. So right now there's not like a shared framework for approaching how training, learning, and professional development happens for staff of a maker program, for the volunteers that are in there, and even the patrons that might be using some various tools that you have in your space. Also, the makerspace tools and techniques are they're always evolving, right? There's always new things, new upgrades, new types of materials, and libraries need to keep up and keep evolving with all of those changes. And there's just support needed around how to recruit for makerspaces. This might not be a typical type of recruitment that you do for other types of positions in the library. So you might need a special kind of job description, right, for someone that's working in your makerspace, because it might be someone that has a library science degree or doesn't, right, that you want for that type of space. So the hiring and how to retain diverse staff as well in your space.
And problem 5, developing policies and procedures. Libraries need to support creative and effectively convey policies for their makerspace that promote a welcoming, safe atmospheres. Libraries need to templates or examples when developing their spaces, guidelines, values, and policies, particularly for non-traditional space to maintain the equipment and space necessary to operate the makerspace in a safe and cost-effective way. We can share the best practice with one another to balance risk management and making tools accessible. So can we all enjoy our space? It's always good to reach out and network with other libraries, just to get best practice when it comes to creating policies and procedures.
And finally, problem 6, building sustainable makerspaces. Makerspaces are not the most traditional way for libraries to exist, but they're very, very relevant. We are no longer places where you only check out a book and take it home. And so, in order to do that, though, we need equipment and staff. And in order to do that, we need funding. So, we will talk a little bit about ways to get funding for your spaces, and we need to create strategies to maintain the interest, because if you're going to ask somebody for a donation, you want to make sure that you've been innovative in your makerspace and that it's a place where everybody can get something out of it. So, what are some successful strategies to address these problems of practice? That's what we will address next.
So part of what we're going to pull from in this next section are resources from the Makers in the Library Toolkit. This is a resource that's free and available online through Library Makers, but also there's a separate website for it, makersinthelibrary.org. It was a toolkit that started and was created back a few years back with a project based in California. And there were 10 libraries that were part of a pilot project to figure out what are those really ingredients that you need to create a really successful, sustainable, community-driven makerspace. And from there, this project was funded through IMLS to continue. This was kind of how Library Makers was born out of that next IMLS grant, but it also allowed us to expand the toolkit. So outside of California, we were able to reach a lot of libraries outside of California. And now there are case studies and examples from libraries all across the country in that toolkit. So we're going to pull and talk about some of the tools next that address some of these problems. So in the toolkit, there are 22 different adaptable and practical tools. We're not going to hit on all of them today, but we're going to touch on a few of them that you can download and you can fill in and use with your staff and volunteers as well. So we're going to go back to problem 1, and that's the communicating the value and impact of libraries makerspaces, and talk about some strategies that folks have used to address these. Next. So one is just sharing stories of impact. To always be taking pictures, always be taking notes, writing down a little quote. But when you're doing programming, to think about how you can share these stories. They really make an impact. You could be sharing them on social media. You could be posting them in a newsletter, have a little section of your newsletter that shares a little story. Maybe you get an article in your local newspaper about a program that you have and a story of impact on the radio, through events. So thinking about how you can constantly be taking a photo and sharing these little snippets of stories, both inside the library, but outside, out at the grocery store, start telling people at the community, right? What happened at your Makerspace and Maker program and the change that you saw and the people that came and participated in it. Next. And one of the tools that we have in the toolkit to kind of help you when you're out and about and maybe need to kind of make a pitch for your space, maybe you need to justify to an administrator or to a funder about what is the value of your space. We have this tool called the elevator pitch tool, and it's kind of a fill in the blank style here, paragraph where you can say, hey, did you know, have you heard, and then has a blank for you to fill out your need or problem. And so it kind of gives you a guide for how you could start to create an elevator pitch. And I'll show you an example next. This example is from Guadalupe. She works at the Ponderosa Joint Use Library, meaning that this library is a school library, an elementary school library during most weekdays, and then functions as a public library on the weekends and some evenings. So it's a small library, and this is the elevator pitch that she came up with. She said, did you know that many elementary schools are not equipped with high-tech tools and programs that help prepare our kids for the future? Imagine a community that has additional barriers like limited transportation, a need for English language skills, and few organizations in walking distance where children and families can learn and develop technology skills together. My name is Guadalupe, Library Services Manager at the Ponderosa Joint Use Library. I am helping to develop an intergenerational bilingual makerspace to help children and their families develop skills in coding, science, technology, sewing, and so much more. So there we go, in like a compact way, right? She told us what the problem is, who she is, why it's important, and some of the things that they're doing at the library. And this elevator pitch could be something that you share with your staff, right? So everyone has kind of a common language and a common way that you're communicating the value of what you're doing with others.
So problem number two, outreach and engagement with new audiences. So you've started a maker program, but you need to expand. One of the things you need to do is you need to market your program. This is going to let people know what you're doing. Here's a flyer that's an example from the Ponderosa Joint Use Library. And basically it's a program that they've developed that's going to be teaching coding to bilingual families. And so you want to inform the community what's going on. You want to make sure that you're offering diverse and innovative programming. So again, that goes back to knowing your demographic, knowing your community. So you make sure you're offering programs that your community is going to want to attend. And then make it easier for your community members, your partners, your stakeholders to, if you're marketing your program, then this makes it easier for them to spread the word. We all know that some of our best marketing tools are word of mouth. Somebody hears about something you're doing or participated in a program and then tells somebody else. That can be sometimes the strongest marketing way to market our programs. So in the toolkit is an example of a maker ecosystem. And so I'm not going to read it all to you, but it just gives you all the different things that you are places like at Business and Finance. It talks about the Chamber of Commerce, your Home Depot. What community maker spaces are there? Maybe there are some local ones. Maybe your school has one. If you're a really small community, you may be the only maker space in your community. You need to get with the schools and talk to them and find out what they need or how they can support you. If you've got a local community college nearby or regular college, four-year college by you, you'd be surprised how many students in the college are going to be thrilled to be able to volunteer for you and show some of the skills they have in coding or STEM science or crafts. And they can use that as experience for their college classes. What kinds of hospitals and science industries do you have nearby? Faith-based organizations as well as civic organizations. Do you have a Kiwanis? Do you have a Rotary? Know your city government stakeholders. Know if you have a museum nearby or an arts center or a school of arts. These are all the different kinds of groups that put together will help you as a library have a better idea of what you need for your makerspace and how to continue having a successful makerspace. So this is a library that I was a director at, Bel Air Public Library. We were in northern Michigan. If you could put a hand in front of you, we're at the tip of your hand, and we serve a community of about 3,700 patrons. So we're very small. We have a dedicated teen space. It's simply a tall table with chairs around it in an area where the books that teens are interested in would be. And we added it a couple of years ago to give teens a place that was really just theirs. It has a place for them to plug in their devices. And again, because it's a stool and a high table, they seem to enjoy that space. Anytime we're doing a program, whether it's a new maker program or anything else, we do a lot of community listening sessions. Sometimes they're online, sometimes we go to like a senior center or a government meeting, and then sometimes we just have meetings in the library and people can just stop by and give us some ideas of what they want us to do. Again, we're about 3,000 square feet. That includes the little kitchen, the bathrooms, and the utility room, so we're tiny. When we talk about maker spaces, we actually use our outdoor space quite a bit because we have a very small building. We also have a small meeting area. So the top picture is actually my staff with and board with we got a grant from the government to purchase Solar hub tables. So this is another makerspace area. It's actually electricity is gathered by solar panels that are in the canopy, and then people can use their computers. They can get to the Wi-Fi, but they can sit outside, rain, snow, summer, and be working on different projects. We have a 3D printer. We had a contest that they got to name the 3D printer. And I'll be honest, I can't remember what we ended up naming it, but it was a way to engage the community and let them know we had a 3D printer. One of the things I want to mention about the table is we asked people who use the tables to take pictures of themselves and post it to our Facebook account so that everyone could see that the table was there and ready to be used. We actually got two tables, one for our library and one we donated to the city, to our village. So, but that's a great way to market your new device is have ask people to take pictures of themselves using something that you have new. Our meeting room is in the lower picture with the red tables. That's a very small meeting room. That's where we do a lot of our projects. And then again, we use our parking lot. For example, we had a propagation station set up in the spring so people could bring plants and propagate new plants. Again, all maker programs, and not all of them need equipment.
So, problem three, creating accessible and welcoming makerspace. So, I want to share with you what I have been doing with my library system next. And I want to talk about creating accessible and welcoming makerspace and programs for our participants. And I work for Henrico County Public Library. I'm the Teen and Digital Media Lab supervisor, where I also do a lot of makerspace programs, but not just only for teens, but for folks of all ages. And I came across a situation where a parent of an older adult wanted to participate in a program. And sometimes you may come across this with folks who want to have their adult with disabilities participate in teen programs. However, it's always best to evaluate the setting. And for that particular time, we didn't have a large crowd, and I adapted the program to allow the participant to participate. And the parent was very pleased to the point where it reached administration, and they gave me some compliments. Years later, I've been receiving requests about D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and other types of programs. However, based on the audience, you have to gauge what would be suitable for them to participate, because we still want the teens to feel like they have their own space. I end up mentoring one of a supervisor from an adult daycare for a program called Leadership for of Henrico, and we were talking about his adult daycare group and how he feels like he doesn't get the same type of services compared to the West End. And he starts telling me about another library system that he goes to, even though we are we service his community. So we started talking, and I told him I can adapt programs for his adult daycare group to come, and we started doing it regularly. So I've been adapting programs that I have been doing for my teens, and I also done these with adults too when it comes to arts and crafts, and incorporate them for the folks to participate. And we have a wonderful partnership where the participants, they're all of different abilities. Some are in wheelchairs, so we have to think about accessibility when it comes to that. And also creating a safe environment, because a lot of times I do run programs in my teen department because we have the space to do so. However, because of sensory and other accessibility issues, we may have to sit them somewhere where they can be comfortable and adapt and have fun at these programs. And so I also want to mention next, doing advanced technology classes too. So we do not want to create some type of barrier. We want to create a wonderful offerings for all. And accessibility is very important when it comes to working with adults with disabilities as well as aging adults because you want to make sure they're comfortable, the seating's adjusted right, and also the type of tools and equipment that you will want them to use. So I have done heavy research when it comes to doing programs to make sure that it works for them. I work very closely with the supervisor of the adult daycare group. And I also want to share for the building that I work at is was built in 2016. I came aboard and helped develop the teen department and the digital media lab. However, on the second floor, we have a digital capture lab, but we were not able to use it because security risks. However, I am happy to say that I get to use this space and it will be our future maker space, which will also allow our adult daycare group to have a space where they may want to express themselves loudly or and feel more comfortable to enjoy themselves. So I'm very pleased with that. Next.
So as you're thinking about, creating these awesome programs like Natasha talked about in the toolkit, there is a tool called the People in Purpose tool. And it's a worksheet that helps you to sort of define your audience for your space and think about their needs and the kind of environment and culture you're trying to create in your space. You can be really intentional and set your intentions. It could be for developing that space, developing a particular program as you go along. And so this tool has three parts. I'll just talk about the first two next. The first is that you do this audience statement. And so it's another sort of Mad Lib fill in the blank type of experience, but you think about who you're designing this program or this space for, what they need, what's missing, what the problem is, and some underlying beliefs about that need. So an example is, seniors living alone need more social connection and engaging activities because they're feeling isolated or they're on limited incomes. It could be that teens need access to digital media equipment because they're really interested in creating their own YouTube channels or in recording their original music. So you start to think about these various audiences that you serve and what their needs might be. Next. And then the second part of the tool is looking at the environment that you're trying to foster. So by defining these elements, it's going to make it clear to you and the team that you're working with what the overall goals for the program in this space are, so you can start designing towards that end. So you think about the attitudes, behavioral qualities that you hope to encourage in your environment. So do you want everyone to leave feeling empowered? Do you want people to walk into your makerspace and feel very safe? Do you want to create a culture that's very open-minded, that's reflective, that's joyful, right? And there's blank spaces here too for you to fill in other words if these don't quite fit what you're looking for. But it helps you think about then in the last part of this tool, creating statements that say, like, I want my maker environment to help support people to be collaborative because they're working together in a shared space, or the space I'm creating helps people to feel confident because it gives them a really safe place to try something new. So it's, again, just other components of thinking about creating really welcoming and accessible spaces.
And then problem number 6, building sustainable maker spaces. Obviously, sustainability is funding, but it's also spaces that are receiving interest and people are continuing to use your space. So this is an example from Bel Air Public Library. We were lucky enough to get a grant from the Libraries Transforming Communities. It is a private grant that is administered through ALA, and why that's important is you get the funding before you make the expense. Not a reimbursable expense. It's also not a federal program. So it's a pretty safe grant program. And in this case, we had double set of doors to our entryway that were not automatic. And we have a pretty large, population of seniors and moms with strollers and kids. And so we were able to get a $10,000 grant to be able to put these doors in. And other places you can get grants are any of your humanities organizations. In Michigan, we have the Michigan Humanities Council, and we're able to get funding for lots of different programs, and they pay for pretty much everything. And again, it's not a reimbursable. You get the funding, and then you can use it. You do have to do reports afterward for both of these grants, but it does make it a little bit easier. You're not having to spend a lot of money and then hope to get paid back. Make sure you look at your service club, local service clubs, Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions. Your Friends of the Library, obviously, is another funding source. Your state libraries, in some cases, our state library in Michigan offers a lot of different grants that they help fund, and from a couple $1,000s to $20,000. So that's another way that you can look for funding for your maker area. And also look at other state and national library organizations, PLA, ARSL. There's a multitude of different organizations, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a library organization. We've received funding from an electric co-op. There also, if you become a member of Library Makers, which again is free, you just sign up. We actually have many webinars, and one of them is grant writing tips and tricks, which is available in our event recordings. I'll show you where on the webpage. And it basically gives you some ideas and ways to make grant writing not nearly as difficult as it might seem. Here are a couple examples again of Bel Air. The picture on the left is a, whoops, the picture on the left was a, picture, just a second, sorry. So the picture on the left is a cooking class that we funded through the Michigan Humanities Council. And basically, we offered 6 different classes. People signed up for them. And if they came to 3 of the 6 classes or more, they received either a free crock pot, a free Instapot, or some cookbooks. And this was something that was important to us because a lot of seniors don't know how to cook or aren't comfortable cooking for just one person. We had some families that have food insecurities, and we were able to help them look at ways that they can use their SNAP, which is our food stamp program. They can use fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and cook. This was funded entirely by our Michigan Humanities Council. On the other side is a real simple project. It only cost about $250, and we got a grant from a People's Fund for our electric co-op to put this nature loom up. And the loom sits up, and throughout the seasons, we asked people to add stuff to our loom. This was during the fall, and so they were adding dried weeds and leaves, and this usually gets filled. In the wintertime, we add yarn pieces so that the birds can use them to make tents. But these are perfect examples of something small libraries can do that are maker programs and aren't necessarily just sitting in our building. So the community at Library Makers aims to continuously work to address these challenges together. So this is a collaborative space. The Library Makers is. Hopefully we've captured for you our problems of practice, the difficulties and the challenges that you run into when you're creating a makerspace or have a maker program. So if you have any ideas or creative solutions, our email is right here, info@librarymakers.org. And you can also post your thoughts on our community's website and on our newsfeed, which is librarymakers.org. We're interested in what challenges you might have with makerspaces, or have you created some kind of maker program that addresses some of the challenges that we've talked about today? And then how can we, as librarians involved in maker programming, how can we together leverage these challenges? How can we make it easier for everybody else and all of us to have new ideas? Librarians are wonderful. We borrow from each other, we share from each other, and that's an important part of our legacy. With maker spaces, I haven't run into any library makers yet that aren't willing to share their ideas or even sometimes the forms they use. One of the things we want you to be aware of is librarymakers.org. It is a free, completely free program that all you have to do to sign up is basically have an email, and you sign up to become a member, join, and then you have access, and let me show you, you're going to have access to a lot of stuff. This is what our Library Makers program looks like. You can see there is a news feed chat, and people are constantly saying that somebody has wheels they have to replace on a cart for their maker area. So where can they get that? And then people give you ideas. There's all different kinds of questions. What kind of cardstock should I use? I'm doing a program for teens, and this is constantly being used by our members where they have questions or problems. So we had somebody questioning, they're having a lot of trouble putting the filament in their 3D printer, and from that became a class or a webinar as to how to retrace filament on your 3D printer. So that's a lot of the value is just sharing ideas. When we have events, we have one coming up on September 3rd about sewing in maker spaces. And then this is important under event recordings. These are all the programs we have already done. And you have access as a member to all of these where we've had tool talks, we've had the 3D printer guide, we've got a tinkering club, we called it snack break, where these are short little programs that you can do. Say you have a program and you're having trouble getting people to come, it gives you ideas as to how to deal with low program turnout. This is where the grant writing program is, and all you would do is click on it and it will take you through a presentation similar to this, and it gives you ideas of how to write grants. And you can always put a question at info@librarymakers.org and we can answer your question. But also, if you're a member, you can just go to the news feed. There's also a blog that monthly, quarterly, sometimes weekly, depending on the problem, somebody will have a project that they did and they'll give you ideas and all sorts of things that you can do. Lots of great ideas. We have a members directory. We talk about library makers. Here's where the toolkit is. This is the toolkit we talked about, and it's in lots of different, it's broken up, but you can also just get the whole toolkit. This is where you would download some of those forms we talked about. And again, this is all free because it's an IMLS grant. Right now, all of our programming is free. There may come a time when we have to do some other things with programming. We're talking about possibly having a virtual conference that might have a small fee for it. We're talking about possibly doing more intensive webinars. But right now, everything here at Library Makers is free, and it will stay that way into the near future, we hope. So that is what the Library Makers looks like. And then also you can subscribe to our bi-monthly newsletter, again, as a maker, and it goes right to your mailbox, and it will have signups for programs. It will have all sorts of ideas. There's usually somebody that's highlighted, a program that's highlighted. Again, this is a collaborative space. And you can, once you become a member, again, it's free. Once you become a member, you can go to the toolkit that I showed you, and you can actually download the entire toolkit. You can keep it digitally, you can print it, you can do whatever you want with it, but it gives you all sorts of ideas. We recently, in the last year, revamped the toolkit, so it's pretty up to date with equipment and things like that. So we want to thank you for attending our webinar. Natasha, Lisa, do you have anything to share?
No, just thank you, everyone. We hope to see you on the community.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.